so I just finished rewatching Slipper and the Rose, which is one of my favorite Cinderella movies. And my bias, top 5 favorites, for sure. Where exactly it lands in there always changes, just kind of depending on which of the other 5 I've watched lately or whatnot. Actually, it's probably my top 3, really. It usually lands in the top 3. It is actually a musical, so that means it's not necessarily for everybody's taste. I understand that. And one of the flaws it has is the flaws that I've kind of complained about other things that are pantomime, musical kind of things, is that the dance routines and the musical numbers go on longer than necessary, to the point of just like, okay, great, that's skillful choreography and everything, but I would like to get to the story, please, thank you. And there's a few songs, like, honestly, there's one I would just do away with altogether, and a couple I would, like, just shave, like, maybe 30 seconds off here and there, and that way I could have a little more time for characters and resolving a couple of plot points. But beyond that, the music is actually really, really great. I scored it a 4. I would have given it a 5 if it wasn't for that one particular routine that really doesn't need to be there. And it's not that it's a bad song, it takes up more time than it needs to be. It doesn't really need to be there, actually. What is conveyed in that song and dance is easily conveyed in just a couple of lines and move on. The song and dance routine should be there to punctuate a point, to give it a little more, to grab you emotionally. So that's what the music, it's to entertain you, but it's also to hit you in an emotional spot. There's one song that I used to think that I would have cut out before, but actually this time that song actually hit me really, hit me this time. So that was actually a nice change. It's good when you rewatch something and you pick up, it's like, I already knew there was a couple of flaws here and there that I would like to tweak around, but when you rewatch it, and it's like, oh, it's my favorite, and I'm trying to be critical, but I'm actually picking up on more things that I do like, and some subtext that I'm like, either it just didn't hit me as hard before, or I just didn't pick up on it, I forgot about it. There's a lot of times there's little details that you forget in between watching a movie if it's been a while. So, it's by, it's a British musical. So the whole cast is a really solid British cast. The story itself is taking place in France in the, I guess say about the mid to late 1700s. And so it's supposed to be a smaller kingdom that is within France. Which I would think time-wise it really should be older than that, rather than so, far into the modern age. But it is what it is. The only reason why you actually have a date is actually one of the early routines is at the royal crypt. And this is one of the things I love about this story. 1, it's from the prince's perspective. 2, it has this delightful sense of humor. And it's just really fun. The prince is, he wants real love, but he's under pressure to get married for the sake of a political alliance. The kingdom is under threat from neighbors, and so the king, the father, is desperate to make sure his son gets married to a princess from a neighboring kingdom that is strong enough that they could join forces. That way anyone threatening them would kind of just back off automatically on seeing this alliance. That's the political game they're in. And this isn't like, in some stories, the concept of such an alliance or, political marriage kind of lingers in there. But no, this is the driving plot of the movie, the conflict between his duty and the politics, and his father and his whole family and everybody telling him what he needs to do. And he already knows what his duty is, but he just desperately wants to get married. But he desperately wants to get married for love. I mean, he really does want to get married, but he wants it for love. And on the other hand of things is, he's a young man who still thinking and considering what love is. He's not like super young. He looks like he's probably edging towards 30-ish, or at least his late 20s. And so, he's kind of an older prince, maybe, character than what you're used to in Cinderella stories. His name is Edward, and he has a manservant named John, his man-at-arms, who's always by his side. And Edward, bless him, is kind of a ditz in certain respects. And I say ditz, but it's like he's just oblivious. Like, on one hand, he desperately wants to figure out what true love is and find true love and get married for true love and be his own person in that. On the other hand, his man-at-arms, John, is a lowly servant, and John is in love with a woman who is the lady-in-waiting for Edward's grandmother, who is a crazy old bat, which is pretty funny. But Caroline, the dear Lady Caroline, she's of nobility, and so she's completely unattainable for John. And this is a very subtle plot line, and yet Edward, like, he knows about it whenever he starts owing and growing about his own problems, and then he realizes, oh yeah, John. And then it really takes him a long time before he figures out he can actually do something to change John's love life and fix it. It's like, okay, I can do this for you and fix this problem for you. Go and be happy for the both of us. Because, poor Edward, trying to find true love in the conflict that he's in with duty, and then when he does meet Cinderella, and she's not royalty, so that plays a problem. I don't want to spoil the story because I do want you to watch it and enjoy it. And I looked before we watched this to see if it was available on Netflix or Hulu, and unfortunately I couldn't find it available on any streaming sites, at least not right now. But you can buy it on Amazon, and the prices run between $11.95 for $22.99 for the DVD. There is one that labeled the special edition for over $60. I wouldn't do that. Like, I would love to get the special edition, but I think anybody asking for that is trying to rip you off. So be very careful about shopping online and making sure you're getting high quality, exactly what you want, and it's not a ridiculous price, okay? I love this. I would buy this. It's a very good, fun musical. It's a great movie. And actually, while I was looking stuff up before watching it to do this review, I did see that somebody took some of the special features on the special edition of the writers and a little bit of, they did behind the scenes, but of course it's filmed like in more recent years, especially for the DVD, and about the development of it. And they mentioned that they were very hesitant when they were approached about doing a Cinderella because, at the time you already had Disney did the definitive animated film, and that's even the word that these gentlemen used in the interview. It's the definitive animation. Now, that's what I said. It's not, to me, it's not definitive, but for a lot of people it is. And then Rodgers and Hammerstein, and being writers of musicals and things, they have tremendous respect for Rodgers and Hammerstein, and thought, how in the world could we possibly do a Cinderella story when you already have those two that are very musical? One is definitely a musical, and then the animated, it's pretty much a musical too. And it's like, how could you possibly compete with those two? What would even be the point? And so that is where they came up with the idea of, well, if we're going to do it differently, let's do it from the princess perspective. And in opening that door, like you said, you get this whole subplot, and actually, it's the main plot, is the politics and the duties and responsibilities and privileges of being the prince, being the next one in line throne. I think it's interesting the timing that this movie was made and everything, because it was made like in the late 70s. And so, being British and everything, I can't help but think about the British royal family and what was going on with Prince Charles and Diane. I think this is like, would have been like before they got married. So it's kind of interesting the timing on that. I don't know if they would have been like courting at this time period. I'd have to check the dates and stuff. But it is something that makes you go, I wonder. That's interesting. So the prince is a really great character overall. It's like, yeah, he's not the perfect Prince Charming at all, but he does have a real conflict and arc. And the funny thing is okay, we still do get love at first sight with him and Cinderella, and he's completely embarrassed by it. You know, he's just like shocked and just like it blows himself away that he's suddenly just like mesmerized by this person. And it's like he didn't even want to have a ball because he felt like this is ridiculous to have, you know, a bride finding ball. A bride finding ball. Imagine a bride finding ball. Anyway, it's a really fun musical, and some of the songs just really stick with me. And Edward, like I said, he's kind of oblivious to certain things. It takes a really long time for him to figure out, hey, I can actually help my buddy John here. It's like he's so, and this is the way I take it, I think he takes for granted the difference in stations between him and John, because John is his constant companion, that to him he doesn't even think of and realize that John is a servant. I mean, yeah, he serves him, but you know, he's closer to him than like his cousin or anybody else that's of nobility. So I think that's how I interpret why Edward takes so long, and it takes John like really spelling out, you know, the stations and why things are the way they are between him and Caroline, before it goes, you know what, I can fix this. You say this is the way it's always has been, always will be, but I will fix this. I will change this. And so that shows some growth for Edward, and he resigns himself for a while that, you know, at least he will help his friend John to find happiness, even if he can't find happiness for himself. And there's some other things, and the ending to it is not the way you would normally think Cinderella's story should end. Honestly, I was like this close to wanting it to end a little sooner and have kind of that bittersweet ending, but I won't spoil it. It's worth watching, like seriously. If you like fairy tales, if you like musicals, definitely give this one a try. After I ranked everything, and I'll throw the numbers up here in just a little bit, it gets a score of 3.666. Yeah. Oh well. Anyway, don't let that discourage you. I am really, really careful. I don't throw around and give 5s to a bunch of things. I actually don't even give 4s to a lot of stuff, really. And what brought the score down, well, first what brought it up is I love Prince Edward. I think he's awesome. I mean, he's very unique. He's just a really solid character on that. And going through his arc and everything. It is from his perspective. So it'd be really bad if he wasn't. And I love the fairy godmother. She is just like, she's a 5. Like, she is the best fairy godmother ever. She is so witty. She is just so, like, I don't want to, like, describe it because I don't know that I could describe it without giving it all away. But, you know, she has this thing where she's doing fairy godmother stuff for all these other stories. She referencing to other fairy tales, 101, the Arabian Nights, Little Mermaid, a whole bunch of other stuff. Like, she's busy. And there's a reason why, even built in the plot, why the magic ends at midnight. It's because she has so many things going on. She has to actually borrow the magic to help Cinderella out at this particular time. And so there's just like, there's all these little interesting details going on. So, and oh my goodness, what she says about fairy godmothers. No, we're not all glitter. Imagine, that's so undignified. That's not the exact line. That's kind of a summarization of the interaction, but it's so awesome. It's like, and one of my other favorite fairy godmother characters is all sparkles and glitter. And, you know, I totally love that fairy godmother. And then to have this fairy godmother go, no, that's just undignified. But I still love her. It's just awesome. But what really brings it down is the stepmother does not have a lot of development. She's petty and vain, and she's just very suiting. She doesn't really arc or anything. She has this, like, a slight little thing because she is the foil to Cinderella. Cinderella doesn't have a strong personality in this, and she's not my favorite Cinderella. She's only a 3 as far as I'm concerned. I mean, she has a little personality. She has, of course, her arc and everything, but the actress does a really great job. So I don't want to see anything that, like, sounds too negative, because I don't want that to sound like I didn't like the actress, because the actress was spot on. I really like the actress. And I think maybe that's part of being written by men from the man's perspective is, yes, they showed certain things from Cinderella's perspective that you would normally expect to see in a Cinderella story, but they didn't fully develop and flesh her out. And so that's a little disappointing. But she's still, you know, she's a pretty good character. One thing that I didn't like, though, is in her first scene, they're coming home from her father's funeral. Her stepmother is indicating that, you know, she's dismissed all the staff and now Cinderella will be the staff, except her name is Cinderella. And that doesn't really work because the name Cinderella is supposed to be a nickname that she gets after she becomes, you know, covered in soot and ash and such. It's a name she kind of earns based on her condition of being a servant. So to play it straight, like Cinderella's her name all the way through the movie, I don't really like. I think it's a little distracting and it shows a little lack of thoughtfulness on the part of, you know, developing this main character, this lead female character. So that's a problem right there that could have easily been fixed. It really, I don't think there was really any reason for it. It just maybe slipped their mind, take that for granted, the name is Cinderella. Even though the title isn't Cinderella, she's not the titular character because it's called Slipper and the Rose. And it's interesting because the Slipper and the Rose is actually, I think, one of the old titles for Cinderella. Charles Perrault, I believe. That was one of the titles used, was Slipper and the Rose, or maybe it was just the glass slipper. Ugh, now I have to look it up. Okay, but anyway. Was there another mark I wanted to talk about? The special effects is one reason why it doesn't have super high marks. Like, I give this a lot of 4s, some 3s, and a couple of 5s. I love the costumes. Costumes were amazing. The acting was spot on. Even the minor characters in the background, even characters who didn't have names, the actors were acting the entire time, which was great. But the special effects were not good. And the stepsisters, while they're not stupid and ditzy and ugly and just obnoxious, I just can't stand certain tropes. And thankfully they are not twins. They really just, they're there. They exist. Mercifully, they're not obnoxious or unlikable, but they don't really have personalities. So for the most part, they end up playing a lot of things subtly, and so they come kind of average. And you see, like, they don't just snip at Cinderella. They're constantly going back and forth with one another with envy and jealousy. And some of the quips, though, that they have for one another is pretty good. I mean, so they're not stupid at all. And that's another thing I love this movie. Just the language of the movie. Whether it's in the lyrics or the spoken part, it's like, I feel smarter after watching this movie. You know, you watch certain things, it's like, I feel really stupid after watching that. Not this movie. This movie, it's like, ooh, yeah, that's a word. You know, you really build your vocabulary listening to some of the lyrics on this. I enjoy that. It's like, you know, people say, oh, you want to be smart to read a book. Listen to this one. This one will, like, some of the songs are so fast-paced, and they just use, like, these really large words. It's like, it's kind of fun, though. And, of course, the hook is always more pedestrian vocabulary. But then, like, the verse will be larger, more, thesaurus heavy kind of words. So it's, like I said, I really enjoy this movie. It's one of my personal favorites if I'm just going to be completely biased. But to be non-biased, yeah, it does have its problems, which is one reason why I do go back and forth between it and a couple of other ones as my favorites. And especially for being a story so heavily based off of Charles Perrault's version, and those get so redundant after a while. It's like almost all of them are based off of Charles Perrault in films and things. Then it does bring a fresh air and something fun and new to the table. So totally recommend checking that out if you can. I usually watch it from the library. I do want to eventually get my own copy from probably Amazon because I can't find it anywhere else. And I don't get paid for saying that, but, like, I do recommend that movie, so I do want to suggest, you know, okay, here's where you can get it. I'm a tightwad. I'm the kind of person I like to buy, you know, 10 movies for $5 at Walmart. You know, I'm crazy like that. Okay, they don't really do this very much anymore. But, alright, have a good night. I'll see you guys Tuesday with a book review.